Hi, I'm Ed Amoroso from Tag Cyber, and I'm here with Dexter Caffey, who is the founder and chief disruptor of a company called Smart Eye Technology. Dexter, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Ed.
So you're calling in from Atlanta. I see the very cool backdrop there.
Absolutely, Atlanta Tech Park here in Atlanta. So we love Atlanta, and definitely thank you so much for having us on today. It's cold here in Atlanta today.
It's cold in the New York area as well. We're filming this sort of the end of 2020. So when we get to the end, I'm going to ask you some predictions. But hey, before we get into a description of the very cool technology that you guys offer, just give us a real brief thumbnail on the company and what you guys do, and then we'll go back. I want to hear a little bit about your backstory.
Awesome, awesome. Well, basically, what we do is actually we create what's called technology for your eyes only. So, in other words, when I send you a document, Ed, you're the only face that can physically look at that document. If, let's say, a friend walks behind you and said, "Hey, Ed, what are you looking at?" It'll automatically detect their face and it'll block the entire screen and say, "Warning, multiple viewers," because somebody else physically is looking at your screen.
Seems like a pretty important thing nowadays where people have sensitive things they're typing into their devices and computers and so on. That would seem like a pretty important use case.
Absolutely. What's happening right now in with people working from home, and as you know, everybody pretty much is working from home right now. There's a few people like me back at the office and things like that, but most people are still working from home. And the problem is that, when you're sending sensitive data, you want to make sure that that data is being seen only by the person that you sent it to.
Yeah. Dexter, you and I chatted some number of months ago. You had a great story about how you got into this. Why don't you share with the folks a little bit about what prompted you to start the company?
Okay, great. About 3 years ago, Ed, I was actually on a trip to Israel, and I go to Israel like every year to see some of the new and latest technologies out there. And all of a sudden, we were at this cybersecurity event, and I'm sitting next to this cybersecurity expert. And so, as I was sitting next to this cybersecurity expert, I noticed when I looked at his screen, I saw documents. I saw Word documents. I saw PDF documents, and a thought just ran through my mind. I said, "What if we could stop somebody from looking at documents on your screen?" And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, "Oh my goodness." And so that's how the whole idea started about stopping people from physically looking at documents on your screen.
And the way you do it now is you put your hands and you move things closer and pretty awkward kind of situation. So,
It
so
is.
how
It,
did
it is.
how did you go from that idea to come? Most people have these ideas. Like everybody knows 1,000 people go, "Oh, I got a great idea for a company," and then they never follow through. How did you go from an idea to like here we are 3 years later and you got this very cool company? What did you do?
Well, what happened was when I came back from Israel, um, I had a strong thought in my mind, Ed. The thought of trying to figure out how to block somebody from looking at documents on your screen. I was wondering if I sent you a document, Ed, why should other people be able to see the document that I sent you? So the thought wouldn't leave me, and it was something like, my background is actually financial services, so I wasn't a tech guy like you, and so and so what happened was I couldn't believe that this had not been created. And I said, what if we could create something like that? So I reached out to a company, a startup in Israel, and I said, they specialize in biometrics, like facial recognition, fingerprint, voice. And I said, I want you to help me to create some software that'll shut off if Ed physically looked at my screen. And they thought I was crazy when I came up with that idea. They scratched their heads and said, this sounds crazy. We've never helped anybody create anything like this. So this was the start of it. And so it was just something, Ed, that did not leave my mind. I thought about it night and day. I tried to get it out my mind because I was already in business and I know how hard it is to start a business. And it was just something that I just couldn't get out of my mind. I just couldn't.
So Alice is looking at her device and she sees a PDF pops up, and the device uses facial recognition and bio to know that it's Alice and know that she's authorized to look at that document. Is that the basic idea?
Yeah, the basic idea is that we have a web app and a mobile app. So you would have authenticated yourself through the mobile app. And once you've done that, Alice then would open up a document that I sent her through our Smart Eye technology platform. And from there, the document stays open to her face. We use what's called continuous facial recognition. So every second that she's looking at that document, it's constantly scanning her face to make sure that her face is the only face looking at that document. And if she turns her head or walks away, the document automatically is blocked. The screen is blocked. This is warning away from phone if she walks away from the phone. And if, let's say, you looked at her document, it would say warning. Multiple people are looking at this document, multiple viewers. So it makes sure that it tracks only the face that physically should be looking at that document only.
I would imagine masks must be an issue right now. Pretty soon that we'll all be back to just our normal faces in front of documents, and certainly when we're, in a setting where it's just us. But what are the plans for dealing with people wearing masks?
Well, we started working on that really when this whole situation started to happen. We have a portion of Smart Eye that does still detect you even with a mask on. We've got a portion
Wow.
that's not perfected. It's not perfected. I'd say it opens up maybe 30% of the time. I've tried it several times, so we're not 100% there, but we are there. We're actually creating iris scanning next year. So iris scanning will be scanning your face instead of us. Our iris will be scanning your eye, so that we don't have to scan your physical face. So we'll be scanning the iris at that point.
What kind of reception have you been getting? Is it mostly consumers? Is it businesses, small, large, government? Who's shown interest so far in technology?
That's a great question, Ed. We've actually had large enterprises actually, and it's amazing because they actually, we were put into contact with them, and they literally, some of the largest, publicly traded companies that you would know of have actually reached out to us, and I've shown them the Smart Technology platform. They're extremely impressed with it. We've got a lot of serious conversation going on with several of them right now. It's a long list of them, and they're very interested because they send sensitive data, especially in this time where people are working from home and they're worried about that data being seen by other people. So this is a huge market for enterprises. We've got several small to medium-sized businesses that are actually on the verge of using this as well. So it just really kind of blows my mind to see the level of interest off of just a wild and crazy idea that I had.
Well, one more sort of use case question. So when Alice is looking at her document, and then Bob's sitting next to Alice, and Bob has not authorized, what does Bob see? Like Bob is looking sort of askew. Alice is in front of her device. What would Bob see? Is it?
Well, what would Bob see? Yeah, so Bob would actually have to look right over her shoulder in order for the document to shut off. If Bob is looking, if they're next to each other, Smart Eye will not shut off. It's for the people who are really behind you. That's what it's really for at the end of the day. But it's really, the use cases really vary from company to company. Some companies were looking at using Smart Eye for sending invoices through because a lot of these phishing emails are happening. And the problem is, especially in this environment now that we're in, you can't go to the CFO or the CEO and say, hey, listen, did you want this $100,000 to go out to your favorite organization? You can't do that now. So now you have to pick up the phone or send an email, and it takes time. There's a process now. You have another step to go in front of before you can do that. So what's happening now? These hackers are able to send out these phishing emails, and automatically I assume that that $100,000 request came from Ed, and it didn't. And so now Smart Eye stops that, because when you actually are in the Smart Eye technology platform, the only company that you can communicate with and collaborate with inside of our platform is a company that you previously allowed to collaborate with. In other words, you said they're allowed to collaborate with you through our platform. If you didn't give them permission, they can't send you anything through Smart Eye technology.
That is a deep concept. Like that's a lot. That's a lot more penetrating than just the document opening up based on facial. That allows you to impose policy. That would seem to me to be quite promising. You're right as you think about that. That example you use of people like transferring money and stuff. It's amazing that still happens, and it seems like this would be a good approach. What platforms and devices? What do you run on? Like what kinds of devices do you support?
So we're of course on iOS as well as the Android platform as well, and our web app runs on as long as you have a browser. Our web app runs on your desktop, runs on your laptop computer, and as long as you have a camera, you can use Smart Eye technology, because we're constantly scanning the face every moment that a document is open to make sure that your face is the only face physically looking at that document.
Now we're at you and I are at the end of 2020 here, and I'm curious. I want you to put your crystal ball on and tell us what sorts of things are your customers looking at next year? And what you mentioned earlier, the retinal, that's kind of cool. Where do you see this all headed? What's ahead in the next year?
Well, I think what we're doing, we're being extremely innovative, and we're really focused on, using biometrics to authenticate you. This is why we don't use any passwords inside of Smart Eye. So there's no password that you have to have in order to access the platform. Your password is your face, your fingerprint, your voice, and your iris. And so next year we're looking at a group of other type of biometrics, especially in the area of behavior biometrics. So in other words, how do you hold the phone? How do you
Right.
move your hands on the screen? How do you type on your laptop or desktop computer? So we're looking at using a group of behavior biometrics in order to allow you to say that, okay, this is really Ed who's actually looking at this document here.
That really seems like a massive new area in cybersecurity. We see it all the time, like this idea that you know who you are and how you behave and what your facial and other kinds of things. It makes perfect sense that that would become play a bigger role in both authentication and also authorization, as you said earlier, with the phishing. Do you see more businesses beginning to write this into their policy? It seemed like it'd be a pretty good idea to do that. What do you expect in the coming year?
Yeah, I expect companies to adapt this more and more. And in fact, I think it was a study I read the other day that showed that basically over the next 3 years or so, biometrics will play a key part
Mm.
of companies' privacy and security that they're using, and we're already there on the forefront of this. And so we've got, like I said, major publicly traded corporations who we're in heavy talks with, and so we're very excited about 2021.
So Dexter, people who are interested, how do you normally engage? Would a POC be the way you would go, or how should they be in touch with you, and how can they engage?
Absolutely. You can actually go to our website, Smart Eye Technology, Smart Eye Technology. I know it's a long word. Or also, you'll be able to go to Samsung's website, Samsung.com, at the
Mm.
latter part of January, and you'll be able to test Smart Eye out for free for 2 weeks.
Wow, that sounds like a wonderful partnership.
Absolutely.
Well, Dexter, as usual, I always enjoyed chatting with you. It's such a cool idea. It's simple, but it's clean. The kind of thing I really like. I mean, normally when we're talking to cybersecurity companies, my head spins on the complexity. But this is a very simple, clean solution to a problem. I really do admire it. And for the folks watching, I hope you go to Smart Eye Technologies website, take a look. I know I have, and I think it's a fine approach. So Dexter, on behalf of my team at Tag Cyber and the people watching, I want to thank you for spending a little time and appreciate you sharing.
Thank you so much for having me on, Ed.
Great. And for the rest of you, we'll see you next time.